You're listening to the Spy-Fi After Dark podcast. Hey there, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Spy-Fi After Dark. You're probably wondering, what's going on right now? Why is there only one person on the screen? Well, as you've probably already figured out from the title, this is a bonus episode. It's not a normal episode. The podcast, I've been thinking a lot about the podcast lately, and we happen to have a hard time fitting in a recording this week. So it seemed like a decent time to just go ahead and address this now, since it kind of just lined up. I'm recording this on Sunday, July 12th, and yesterday I had a lengthy conversation with my mom in which we talked about the podcast, among a bunch of other things. And I realized something that I had kind of already been thinking about, but it really became apparent to me at that point, which was I am getting a little burned out by this podcast. And when I say that, what I mean is it feels like we're scrambling every week to get an episode together. And you would think it wouldn't feel that way because, this is, we only do it once a week, right? And we just have to get together and record, and it takes a couple hours, and it doesn't even take that long to edit. But I've noticed that lately it's been feeling like I get to Thursday in the week, I'm like, oh my God, I have to get an episode set up and record it in the next few days. So it will be ready for Tuesday. And I think I came to realize that the way we've been doing the podcast is not sustainable for me. And I'm not really happy with it. Now, I want to qualify that by saying this season 3, which is the current season, is to me much better than prior seasons. I think we learned a lot from those first 2 seasons, and that led to big improvements for season 3. But I think there's even more improvements to be made moving forward. So, and by the way, I have a little piece of paper here with a couple notes that I will occasionally reference. But in general, I'm feeling like the podcast we're putting out is not what I want to put out. And it also feels like it takes a lot of time from me, even though it doesn't, which indicates to me that there's probably something systemically wrong. I mean, granted, it does take a decent amount of time. I really shouldn't undercut it. It's a good 5 to 8 hours, more or less, every week to set up an episode. Which is not nothing. So we're going to have to change the direction a little bit. And for this podcast, I'm hoping I'm not rambling too much here, but for this podcast, I'm going to talk about, I'm going to reflect on season 3 a little bit, and then also just give you an idea of what my priorities are and why I might be feeling this way, and then lay down some ideas for season 4. So I just want to say up front, please, if you enjoyed the podcast or you've listened to a couple episodes and you have any feedback or any suggestions or you have any comments on the things that I talk about in this episode, please let me know. It's really, really important because they're going to be making changes, and I would love for those changes to be at least somewhat informed by the people who regularly listen to our episodes. Because if you've been listening to several episodes, it means you like something you heard. So I would like to know what it was that you really liked, so we don't lose the soul of the podcast while still making it something that I'm more proud of and I feel better about. So I'll start with just describing where my priorities are right now, because I think that will help couch the rest of this conversation. For me, my priorities are in building a creative media business and technology business. And the podcast is one piece of that. Now, when I started this podcast, it was a creative outlet. I mean, that was what it was for. It was to give me a creative outlet that I really desperately needed. I needed to get some escape from my job at the time, and my life was feeling very monotonous. And so this was a way for me to mix it up, to record some conversations I would have with people in my life and put them on the internet because I thought they were interesting conversations. Nowadays, however, I have to think more long-term strategically. How do I want this podcast to fit into my vision? And I'm not going to go into details of the vision because it's not really the point and it would take too long. But I think, okay. So at a high level, part of this is I want to do more YouTube. I've been doing some YouTube videos lately, doing Machus devlogs, and I want to do a more regular vlog, and I want to put time into making YouTube videos. And the reason being, I think it's a good place to build an audience, and also, I feel like I have a lot of content that would be good for YouTube that I could make. So part of this is I want to shift more of my time in that direction. Let's see, how can I connect this all back? So just so you're aware, that's where a lot of my time, I think I want to push towards that, and then building the projects that underscore my business initiatives. The first one being the Iowa Machus, which is less a revenue generating project and more activism, personal project, but still it's important to me. So from there, I think maybe we can just talk a little bit about what happened with season 3, the changes we made. So just at a high level, the changes we made for season 3, we went with shorter episodes. We went from episodes that were generally an hour and a half to an hour and 40 to more like an hour to an hour and 10. Occasionally we hit an hour 15. Once or twice we were under an hour, but usually it was about an hour to an hour 10. And then we added video, and we did a lot of episodes that were just me and Alex. And that was obviously partially because of the whole pandemic situation. It was harder to get guests necessarily. And also because we wanted to, getting guests was a really big, what's the word? A really big, bottleneck. That's the word. A really big bottleneck in producing episodes. It would take a lot of time and effort to find someone, and that was holding us back. And that was actually the biggest reason I think we didn't upload every week in seasons 1 and 2, or why that schedule broke down, is because it was hard to get guests on a consistent basis. So anyways, all of those changes I think were good changes. I think season 3 is better. It's the best season of the podcast by far. And it has some of my favorite episodes in it. But I think we didn't address the core issue, which is that I don't think this is sustainable, trying to make an episode every week constantly. I don't think we can do that and have the level of quality that we want. That is my takeaway from this season, which is a big takeaway. I mean, overall, like I said, we made 25 episodes. I've learned a ton about podcasting that I did not know. The biggest lesson, which I really learned in season 1 and season 2, was there are basically 2 types of podcasts. There's a topic podcast where your podcast is about something. Those are like the murder mystery podcasts or the podcast about a particular industry or technology or whatever. And there's a personality podcast, which is about the hosts as opposed to the topic. The former being much easier to find and grow an organic audience. The latter being much better for people who already have an audience. Anyways, so what I have learned is that for my particular situation, because I have a full-time job, I don't have a lot of time necessarily to devote to this every week. I need to come up with a solution that is going to work better with my schedule, work better with Alex's schedule, because he's also very busy, and still be able to produce episodes that we are really proud of and that we really like. So to that end, let's just get into some ideas moving forward. We'll kind of wrap this up pretty quickly. I did not expect for this to be very long. I wanted people to be able to get through the whole thing. So as far as season 4 goes, I have some preliminary ideas. None of these are nailed down. I should also mention, before I go into this, the next episode of the podcast will be next week. Alex and I are going to get together. It will be the season finale of season 3. We're basically going to talk about a lot of this stuff at a little bit more length, and obviously with his input, not just mine. This was more about documenting my feelings about what's going on and some of my ideas. But I wanted to do an episode with him where we just talk about what we learned from season 3, how we feel about it, how we're going to move forward. And it'd be kind of like this at a little bit more length with more detail, and we'll have a better idea of what we're doing at that point. So that will happen next week, next Tuesday, normal upload time. So I just wanted to mention that real quick. So as far as season 4 goes, I have some ideas. These are preliminary ideas. They are not necessarily going to stay the same. We may do something else. We'll see. But the other important thing to note is that we're definitely going to take some time between season 3 and 4, because we have to figure out what that new direction is going to look like. And then likely the new direction is going to include a much more planned and orchestrated podcast that is less made by the seat of our pants, so to speak. So we have it like ideally it will be such that we have pretty much the entire season recorded before they start coming out, and we can put them all together and put together a more cohesive package. Anyways, so some ideas. The first one is even shorter episodes. I think the 40 to 60 minutes range is what I'm going to shoot for. We're trying to really nail down what kind of length would make sense. I think I'd be happy with anything, even as short as 35 minutes would be okay. And then if most episodes hit 40, 45 minutes, I think that's probably where I want to hit most of the time. Because one of the big things of reducing our runtime for season 3 was it meant that the topics we had to address them much quicker, and it was a much more compressed episode where the information was a little more dense. And I felt that was a really big improvement for the season, but I think we can compress it even more. And at the end of the day, if you're going to listen to the episode, I want you to feel like you're really getting something every minute you're listening. So that's the first idea, is we'll probably cut down the episode length even further. The second idea is I think we're going to do shorter seasons. And in my mind, the way this will work is that if we do a shorter season, we can actually record all of the episodes before the season starts airing, take a little bit of time off to plan another season, record all those while that first season that we had just started airing is airing. And then we'll have the second season finished and recorded, ready to go by the time the first season is over, or shortly after it's over, so that we can start the follow-up season 2 or 3 weeks after the first season finishes. I think that will allow us to produce a more coherent, higher quality package and release consistently while we're airing, with consistent breaks. So just at the very least, you know what to expect as a listener. You know when episodes are going to be coming out and when we're going to be on hiatus, and then when they're going to be coming out. Now, as far as episode length, I don't know for sure. Probably in the 4 to 6 episode range, if I were to guess. I doubt we'd go any longer than 6, because that's a lot of episodes to produce, and that takes a good chunk of time. So that's idea number 2. And then in conjunction with that, this is something Alex and I had talked about a little bit, and we'll most certainly talk about again next week on the full podcast. But I think we will potentially theme each season around a central topic. And so we may have 4 or 5 episodes or 6 episodes, and they're all on the same broad topic, tackled from different angles or tackling different parts of the topic. So in that way, they all run together seamlessly as one package. Each season feels like a cohesive unit by itself. Let's see. Those are the big ideas right now. Again, none of them are final. They may change, but those are the big ideas. I have some other more technical ideas. I want to I think I've been really liking this idea of making like a trailer for the season and treating it more like a show as opposed to a podcast that happens every week, but treating it more like a show. So, I could produce like a trailer, like I said, and this would happen if we had recorded all the episodes and had them all produced before the season even aired. I could take some time to cut together a little trailer, a little preview of the following season, and we could put that out as a marketing asset before the season came out to help people see what was coming up and get them excited. And I have other ideas in that realm that are not coming to me off the top of my head or that are really early in their conceptual phases. So those are just some broad stroke ideas. If you have any thoughts or comments on any of those ideas, again, I would really, really like to hear them. You can leave them in the comments section if you watch us on YouTube. You can message me on Facebook if you happen to have me on Facebook, which a lot of my current viewers are friends on Facebook. So you can message me there. You can send an email to spyfiofficial@gmail.com. Any of those will work. Or you can tweet at me at Melon Tweets. All of those will work for getting my attention. And if you have anything you'd like for us to address or any topics you'd love for us to cover, we'd love to hear it. Oh, that reminds me. The last thing that will definitely be changing moving forward is we're going to reduce the scope of topics that we address, because right now it's hard for me to describe the podcast to someone. And I realize that is a big bottleneck and something that really needs to be fixed. Right now, the podcast is too eclectic and too diverse in the things it covers for me to simply and succinctly tell someone what the podcast is about. I can't just say Spy-Fi After Dark podcast is a podcast about X and Y where we talk with people like Z and A or whatever, I just can't describe it that way right now. So we will definitely be narrowing the scope. As for what we narrow it down to, I'm not 100% on yet, but that will definitely be part of the plan moving forward. And yeah, that's it. Actually, I think that's all I want to cover for this episode. Again, it's just meant to be a short episode to update you guys on what is going on and give you some idea of what we can expect moving forward. So that's it for me. Check me out on Twitter and Instagram, Millen Tweets, Millen Grahams. You know the deal. iowamachus.com. If you haven't looked at it, it's a project I'm working on right now. I'm really passionate about it. It's democracy technology. It's really cool. Check it out. And I will see you next week. Peace.